The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waking humanity, one soul at a time. This is the World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome along to this week's edition of The World You Don't Know with myself, Mick O'Connell, and I have a great guest lined up. I've got a wonderful author and DJ, Mark Devlin. He's been a past guest on the show, and the reason I'm getting him on tonight, he's not going to be on for the whole show. He'll be on for the first segment. If he stays on a bit longer, that'll be great, but we'll see what happens. He is going to be appearing at the Open Minds Ireland Conference in Dooley's Hotel in Waterford on the 2nd, 3rd and 4th of next month, November, so it's almost upon us, folks. Anyway, I'm going to go straight to Mark. Good evening, Mark.
Hey, Mick. How are you?
How you doing? Listen, I don't know if you just heard me there, but I mentioned you're going to be appearing at the Open Minds Conference, like you did last year, down in Dooley's Hotel in Waterford.
That's right.
And you've written a couple of books, one Musical Truth 1 and Musical Truth 2, two absolutely fantastic books exposing the inner workings, I suppose, and the satanic side of the music business.
Well, that's right, and I could probably continue writing volumes of these for however many years I've got left, hopefully a fair few. I think it's a fairly foregone conclusion that there's going to be a Musical Truth Volume 3, because I've already accumulated enough information since putting out the second volume to justify a third book, so who knows, this one could run and run like a Star Wars franchise, you know. But yeah, there's never any shortage of topics to talk about when you set about exposing the true nature of the corporate music industry, because, to make no bones about it, the industry is evil, it's very demonic, and that's not just me saying that. Many artists and senior players, former executives from within the industry, have come forward and said just that, and there's information for days for anyone that wants to dig into this subject area and discover some of the stuff that goes on, from mind control to occult symbolism placed in music videos to the actual demonic possession of certain artists, it would seem. And again,
you know, the old saying, I sold my soul to the devil.
Yeah.
You know, Bob Dylan has said it, countless Stephen Vai, I could go on and on and on.
Ozzy Osbourne, Gene Simmons of Kiss.
A lot of them have said it. You know, is there an element of truth to that? Have they actually, you know, theoretically speaking, sold their souls to the devil?
Well, I would say they have, and when you look at videos of these people talking about having done just that, you can see the sense of regret in their eyes. You certainly could with that Dylan interview, because they've come to realise that it's a one-way ticket and you can't go back once you cross that line. And this goes all the way back to the legend of Robert Johnson, the blues musician, who's said to have made a deal with the devil at the crossroads back in the 1930s in exchange for great musical talent. And that guy...
For anyone who's wondering who he is, that movie with Ralph Macchio, doesn't that depict that event?
It may well do. I've not seen that one, but Robert Johnson was a famous blues musician who is celebrated as one of the pioneering artists of that genre, and he was very musically talented, but there's this myth and this legend that persists that he made a deal with the devil in exchange for all this talent, and he was a very early member of the 27 Club, which is this unfeasible number of musicians that just happened to die in some strange circumstance or other at the age of 27, and the nature of his death was very bizarre and very dark. He's said to have...
And how did he die?
He was supposedly poisoned, I believe, but for some period before he died, he's said to have started howling like a dog, and his eyes just had this demonic glow about them, which sort of reinforces this idea of him having been taken over by some kind of entity, you know. And it goes back to the legend of Faust, this German story of Faust, where this individual makes a pact with the devil in exchange for great worldly knowledge and, you know, material things, but the price he has to pay is his mortal soul. And this legend just keeps cropping up throughout the music business, decade after decade, and you hear many of these artists talking about having done just that. And I think there's a very real sense in which this happens.
And this character you just mentioned, Faust, who is he in history?
Well, Faust was that was a fictional story that came out of Germany in the 1800s, I think. But it kind of reinforced this whole idea of soul selling into the public consciousness, and it's a myth that has persisted throughout the industry to this day.
Now, do you think the same applies for the movie industry?
Absolutely. It's the entertainment industry generally. You see, these are professions that people are prepared to go to great lengths to achieve success in. How many young kids talk about, I want to be a famous actor, I want to be on TV, I want to be the next Beyonce, I want to be up there on stage. You know, people aspire to the entertainment industries because it's stoking the ego, isn't it? People just like the idea of being famous, being a household name, having people worship them. And the controllers of these industries prey on that. They know that people are desperate for success and to get recognised. Look at all these bloody talent shows, the X Factor and Britain's Got Talent and all these garbage shows they churn out. You know, there's never any shortage of people to fill the books with those, because there's so many young people that have designs on being famous and getting out there and job at McDonald's, you know. So people really are prepared to degrade their morals and degrade their very humanity and spirituality. And I think the controllers of these industries have nothing but contempt for those that do that. You know, they're mocking them in so many ways. They will give them that fame and fortune, and they will get all that money, but they get mocked, and they get made to do certain things, partake in rituals, attend all these parties that we hear about, where they get up to all kinds of shenanigans to show just how much they want it. And then when they get out there on stage, think of the likes of Madonna. Madonna is somebody that's been in the public eye for 35 years now. And she's just a performing puppet still, even after all these years. She's known as the grand priestess of the industry, but they still dress her up in all this Masonic regalia and stick her out there on stage. And, you know, they're doing the same thing now with the likes of Lady Gaga and Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and all the rest of them. So I think there's different ways that people get into these industries. Many of them are actually mind-controlled from kids, from childhood, the likes of Britney Spears.
Miley Cyrus is a prime example of that.
Well, absolutely. And also Britney Spears, and I would say Michael Jackson, and there's other examples as well. A lot of these kids are pushed into these industries, and they have no choice in the matter. They just grow up in it. But then you get others who show themselves to be so desperate for fame and fortune and prepared to do anything for it, and they're the ones that get hugely exploited, I would say, by those that have nothing but contempt for them.
It's a strange one. Now, I mean, I've had conversations with people where they've says, you know, do you not think, Mick, that all this Illuminati symbolism, you know, pyramids and Masonic floors and all this, you know, the all-seeing eye in music videos, is that not just these musicians catching on to popular culture because of the internet? And I've urged them, go back and look at some early 80s videos, pop videos. It's full of them. And we didn't have the internet back then, so it can't be.
Exactly. A big part of my public talks this year has been exposing all the symbolism that was right there in 1980s pop videos, and there's a big section in my current book on this. I'm going into Adam and the Ants videos, and Kim Wilde videos, and Eurythmics videos, and Laura Branigan videos, and Duran Duran videos, and I'm showing the exact same icons and motifs and sigils that are appearing in Miley Cyrus and Britney Spears and Kanye West and Rihanna videos. They've been there forever, but back in the 1980s, nobody knew what they were looking for. And you know,
does it go back any further than that, like to the 70s or 60s?
Well, they weren't really doing pop promos in a big way in those decades. The reason there was so much of it in the 80s is because of the advent of MTV, which came along in 1981. So you had a lot of these videos getting made specifically for broadcast on the MTV network because of the millions of new people that was going to reach. But you see it in record sleeves going back to the 60s and 70s, certainly. The Beatles albums, you can have a field day with all that stuff. The Rolling Stones, their Satanic Majesty's Request album, you can be studying that for days. The Doors albums, they've got a bust of Aleister Crowley on the back of one of their albums.
And he also appears on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's album.
He's on Sgt. Pepper, yeah. So many musicians have held a reverence for him. Led Zeppelin's albums, you can look at their sleeves. There's one, I forget the title of it, but they've got these naked children climbing all over these rocks that looks like Giant's Causeway. And you know, there's some very suspect imagery and lyrics when it comes to Led Zeppelin. And you know, they're just one of so many examples that you could look at.
It's nuts, really. What do you think, Mark, though, is the agenda behind all of this?
It's a satanic agenda. I would even call it a demonic agenda. Those that run these industries, the same as those that run every other aspect of our lives, whether it's the banking and finance industries, whether it's government, whether it's the military, whether it's academia, science, the medical industry, they are dark occultists. Let's not beat around the bush. That's what they are. That's what they do. They partake in rituals. They have this ancient religious belief system that they adhere to. And it doesn't matter if people out there are scoffing at all this and saying it's ridiculous. I don't accept this. I don't believe this. You think they care what you believe and what you think? Any one individual out there? Your opinion doesn't matter to them. In fact, they love it if you don't believe it and you scoff at it, because that just makes it easier for them to continue what they're doing. But one of the reasons why they give us these little hints and pointers of what they are doing in the form of symbolism and what's known as predictive programming, the placing of clues into works of popular culture, is because part of their religious doctrine involves them having to tell us in some way what they're doing. They do it in a cryptic, encoded way and a very sneaky kind of way. But as far as they're concerned, they're giving us, the general public, the opportunity to take on an understanding of what they are, what they represent, and what they're trying to achieve. What they are trying to achieve is to debase the masses spiritually and cut us off from our true nature, keep us away from truth, keep us rooted in base consciousness, appeasing to our base, profane desires. That's what sex and drugs and rock and roll is all about. They want people addicted to all these things. They want you reveling in debauchery and hedonistic lifestyles. That's what the 60s counterculture was all about. It was ushering in these new attitudes, these relaxed attitudes to morality and to society, what's deemed acceptable. And
but this is something I've, if I could just cut in there, I only actually mentioned this to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago. What I said to him was, have you noticed over the last 40 years, they have allowed Western culture, i.e. the UK, America, and Western Europe in general, including Ireland, to become completely debauched with itself. I mean, like if you take Ireland, for example, we were a real conservative Catholic country for a long time. And then in the 70s, 80s and 90s, anything goes. Sex shops opening up here, there and everywhere, and drugs is rife, and everybody's morals has gone out the window. So what they did was they let all of that happen, and now all of a sudden they're trying to rein us back in again.
Well,
like with the thought police, and you can't really insult anybody anymore now. It's political correctness has gone mad.
It's different agendas, and it all comes down to social engineering. It comes out of agencies like the Tavistock Institute and the Frankfurt School and the Fabian Society and Oxford and Cambridge universities and all these think tank organisations over in the United States. They just like to have culture and societal attitudes in their grip, and they change it on a whim, and they sweep people along on the crest of the wave and get them to go along with whatever the latest agenda is. So most people now are buying into all this political correctness crap and all this transgender stuff where you've got all these pronouns that you're supposed to refer to people by, and you're deemed by society to be a hateful bigot if you don't recognise the rights of a child that wants to change sex, and all this nonsense which is straight out of these social engineering think tanks. And they've just decided that these are the kind of attitudes that they want society to have in these times. But if you tried all this BS 20 years ago, it wouldn't have washed, because society was very different. I mean, one example which I've given in recent talks is there's a grime artist in London by the name of Skepta. So grime is like a variation on UK hip-hop coming out of East London. And it's traditionally has been very sort of alpha male, very macho, very in line with traditional hip-hop stereotypes. But last year, I think it was, Skepta turns up at some awards event wearing women's knitwear. And the interviewer says, "What's all this?" And he says, "Oh, I'm gender fluid now. Yeah, this is women's clothing, and I feel all nice and comfortable in it." Now, if he tried that 10 or maybe 15 years ago, he'd have been laughed off the scene. Yeah. He'd probably have got death threats. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying it probably would have happened. And he would never have worked again. Wouldn't have worked then, because they hadn't cultivated societal attitudes in that way. But in 2018, he can say that, and nobody bats an eyelid, because now if you criticise somebody saying that sort of thing, you're the one that's in the crosshairs of the target. You're the one that's going to get shunned by all of polite society. And look,
I see society now, Mark, they're trying to feminize men.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that they're doing that is because if and when, say, a revolution should happen, it won't happen because all the men will be pussies.
Yeah. Well, they're anti-creation. What's going on, Mick, is they're trying to create their own new version of God's creation. Whatever anyone's concept of God is, doesn't really matter. There is clearly a creative, generative force that put everything into being. So we have a creation, and it's worked just fine for however long it's been around. But these dark occultists / Satanists are trying to create a new version of that. It's as if they're trying to stick two fingers up to the God of creation and saying, we don't recognize you, we want no part of you, we're going to create our own reality on our own terms. So that's what transhumanism is all about. This is why they're trying to merge humanity with technology. That's what artificial intelligence is all about. That's why they want a society ruled by all this stuff. And that's what the transgender agenda is, because it's turning natural expressions of gender in creation, inherent to creation. There are male principles and there are female principles. And it was put into place by the creative force. And they're now trying to turn these things on their head and invert them, which is a classic tenet of Satanism. It takes something that's natural, that's inherent in creation, and flips it on its head. It does a 180-degree turn to turn it out as something completely different to what it started out as. So they're trying to create their own version of reality where everything is twisted and contorted and inverted from what should naturally be the case. And, you know, when you throw yourself into this research and you look at some of the methods that have been used and you understand what many of these groups and networks are involved with, it's very plain to see. But unfortunately, the vast majority of society don't think critically in that way, and they allow themselves to have their thoughts entrained for them. And that's what these think tanks that I mentioned specialise in. They specialise in thought entrainment, behavioural modification, as they call it, and culture creation, just shaping people's attitudes. There's a quote I always use from Edward Bernays, who's known as the father of propaganda. He was the double nephew of Sigmund Freud, and he was very much one of the elite ruling class that knew what he was doing. And in the opening page of his famous work, Propaganda, from 1928, he makes a statement along the lines of, our ideas, our tastes are formed, our thoughts are moulded, our behaviours are shaped largely by men whose names we've never heard. So he's telling you how they get it done. You know, they basically make sure that your thoughts are not your own, that you're thinking along terms that they've set out, and you don't even realise that that process is taking place because you've just let your guard down and let all this stuff creep in under the radar. Yeah. They've been doing it forever.
There's a bit of hoo-ha going on here in Ireland. I was reading an article in the paper the other day, in the editorial. Some guy had wrote a letter in saying that his school, he didn't say where it was, and neither did the newspaper, but apparently there was a school here where they were expecting Catholic Christian children to go to a mosque to learn about Islam. Now, he refused to allow his daughter to go. Now, I mean, I've no problem. If people want to go away and learn about Islam or Judaism or any other religion, that's their own prerogative. But what his argument was is that the school are ramming it down the children's necks, that they must go and learn about this. And he's saying, like, well, why? You know, what's going on here? Why are they doing this?
Yeah. And they're also introducing all this transgender stuff into schools as well now, from what I hear. My kids have not reported that they've had any of that yet, but it may be just a matter of time. There's an argument.
That would nerve me now. I mean, I've got young children who are going to school. I've got a 5-year-old in school. I've got a 12-year-old in school. Yeah. If they started, don't get me wrong, if people are transgender, they're transgender. But I don't think you should be introducing children to those kind of concepts until they're old enough to actually really understand what they are.
Absolutely.
I think putting them into a school is a bad idea. Teach them how to read, write and spell and do basic mathematics, general stuff.
It's not necessary for them to know at that age. And my kids go to school as well. And I cop a lot of flack for that from certain people. They say, you know, what's the matter with you, Mark? You're a truth-seeking guy. You understand agendas. Why are you sending your kids to school? Well, if you are someone that can make homeschooling work for you, then good luck to you. I take my hat off to you. All the very best. Really pleased for you. But that situation doesn't work for everyone. People's individual situations are different. I don't want to go into details of my private life, but, it doesn't work for everyone. And sometimes you're in a position where you don't have a lot of option. But you know what they should be teaching in schools that nobody could really object to? The basic fundamental principles of natural law or universal law or consequentialism, whatever other name you want to call it. At the very base foundation of it is the simplest teaching of all that literally a 5-year-old child could understand.
Yeah.
And that is, do not treat others in a way you would not wish to be treated yourself. Do no harm.
Do no harm.
What would be so wrong with that basic teaching in schools? That doesn't offend anyone's religious sensibilities. In fact, that teaching lies at the core of most of these organised religions anyway. Most of them preach that you shouldn't cause harm to others and you shouldn't treat people in a way you don't want to be treated yourself. So why is that not taught in schools?
I think... Go on, carry on.
Well, you see that playing out in the choices and consequences method of parenting, which is applied to very young kids. You can do this with kids of 3 or 4 years of age, and you can say, well, I know you want that extra chocolate bar before you go to bed. You can have that extra chocolate bar, but understand that if you do, then you won't be going to play at the soft play ball pit tomorrow. So it's your choice. And you can get the child to think, well, I really want to play at the ball pit tomorrow, so maybe I won't have that bar of chocolate after all. Very, very simple example, but it's choices and consequences. It's in training kids to understand that every action has a reaction, and for every cause there's an effect. And, what you put out, you get back. What goes around comes around. All these different ways of expressing it. You really can be teaching children that young that this is a dynamic that applies in life. And we don't get that in schools, do we?
Absolutely not. We don't actually. No, we don't.
They're teaching you that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon and is a hero, and Tim Peake is this guy that floats around in space. They're happy to teach all that nonsense, but they don't teach basic fundamental principles of spiritual law like that.
Well, they don't either. And as you said yourself earlier on, this agenda is satanic in nature, and they're trying to hide God or whatever it is you want to call him. I mean, I've been having debates recently with people in relation to evolution. It's just something I've been looking into, and I'm not a believer in evolution. I'm not, and I'm not a creationist either. I'm either or. I'm not. I don't follow either thought process. I don't know what got us here or what. But one thing I don't believe in is evolution, that we evolved from monkeys and all of that. I just don't buy any of it. But one guy did say to me, the reason they're pushing that agenda is it's to hide God. It's basically what you were saying.
Well, yep, that's right. They're atheistic in that sense. I mean, I think they've got entities that they revere, these dark occultists that we're talking about, but they're trying to cultivate a largely atheistic mindset in many people. And it's dialectics, isn't it? They control all the major religions, in my view. These religions were set up to keep people locked down with dogma and rules and regulations and stuff. And it's in recognition that in most people there's an inherent search towards spiritual truth. Most people are looking for some kind of meaning in their lives, and so they gravitate towards these religions as a way of trying to answer all these big questions they have. But at the other end of the scale, when you have rigid, left-brained, scientifically inclined people that reject any notion of a god or a creator or any kind of spirituality, they've got them locked down as well with atheistic science and the likes of Richard Dawkins, who I used to actually follow because I went through a period as an atheist myself for a few years in one of my delusions. But, they've got both sides of the thing locked down. They'll either try and coerce you towards embracing one of the religions, or they'll try and coerce you towards embracing atheistic scientism. And that's where evolution comes in. The basic teaching is that we're all random accidents. There's no divine plan to humanity. The earth is just this cold, heartless lump of rock in the infinite vacuum of space. There's no one to care about us. We're on our own, and we might as well just make the best of it. And when we die, we just go into this void of nothingness, and that's the end of it all. That's the atheistic, nihilistic mindset that is being pushed, largely through academic establishments as well. You'll find that being pushed in many schools and universities and colleges.
But I can't help thinking, like in Ireland, for example, like I do believe in God, Mark. I don't know. I don't believe in the Big Bang. You know, out of nothing came everything, and I mean that's just like saying that a tornado going through a scrapyard is going to create a 747 jumbo jet. Ain't going to happen. Right. You know, but when I look back on my history in this country and the way, look, because I didn't come to Ireland until I was 8 years old, so I wasn't indoctrinated from a very early age. You know, I had the benefit of not having to listen to them from the age of 0 up to 8. So when they were waffling their crap to me at 8 and 9 years of age in school here, I wasn't buying none of it, you know. But one thing I've noticed in this country in particular is that they installed religion in here a couple of 100 years ago or whatever and got everybody interested in Catholicism. But then up into the 1990s then, we're looking at the Catholic Church as this satanic paedophilic, you know, this cult that covers up all these crimes against children. And even to this day, it's still going on, as you well know. But I can't help believing that, you know, they built us up and now they've knocked us down. You know, so, you know, we won't believe in God. Nobody's going to believe in God, you know, because people are going to look at the Catholic Church and say, how can there be a God if he allows that crap to go on?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is mind games, isn't it? They just like to confound and confuse the F out of us so that we just don't know if we're coming or going, and we just don't know what bloody day it is.
What planet we're on.
Yeah.
But listen, I need to go to a set of ads. Do you mind hanging on for another couple of minutes and we'll have another quick chat before I let you go?
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right, listen, I'll be back in 2 minutes, folks, with Mark Devlin. Talk to you very shortly. You're going to be appearing in Waterford next month. Do you want to talk a quick bit about what it is you're going to be talking about at your talk down in Waterford?
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to being a part of that event, which is going to happen. It's going to happen this time. We had a major disappointment in March.
Yeah, well, it's not Snowmageddon. There's nothing anybody could do. Nobody could travel, so...
Well, exactly. But, yeah, it's going to be a good one. So it's November 2nd to the 4th, Dooley's Hotel in Waterford. So Trevor, the organiser, has very kindly given me a 2-hour slot on the Sunday afternoon. I'm on from 2 till 4. So I'm really going to lay in to all my research, which falls under the brand name of No More Heroes. And this is all about lifetime actors, culture creation, which I touched on a bit there, and the creation of false heroes and role models. So these are people that are served up to us as individuals that we're conditioned to look up to and revere and listen to and worship and emulate. So this can be, certainly, musicians and pop stars, but it can also be Hollywood actors, it can be business leaders like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, these kind of guys. It can be politicians, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Jeremy Corbyn even. It can be consciousness gurus, the likes of Timothy Leary and Terence McKenna and these kind of guys. It seems everyone's got a personal hero. I certainly used to. I used to look up to other DJs. Other DJs were my inspiration, but I've learnt better now. It turns out... I've
seen taking a swipe at one or two the other day who were doing the satanic hand signals.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing some more of that as well. You know, I mean, Pete Tong is a guy that I used to look up to, long time BBC Radio 1 DJ, but, you know, he's clearly sold out. He took an MBE the other year. You got Tim Westwood, who was a hip-hop DJ that used to have some credibility and used to be someone that was worthy
I
of
never
respect.
took that guy seriously, to be honest with you. I used to laugh at him back in the 90s.
Yeah, well, he's a total clown now. He's a total caricature of his former self, and it's pretty clear to see that he's been a lifetime actor all along. I can see these things now. So I understand how difficult it is for people to let go of these heroes. And believe me, I get a lot of resistance to it. When I start talking about the Grateful Dead or Jim Morrison of the Doors or the Beatles, you know, a lot of people just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear anything about these people.
When you say lifetime actor, some people out there listening now might think it's someone who's been an actor all their life. Can you explain to the listeners what you mean by a lifetime actor? I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so a lifetime actor is somebody that we are entrained to think of in one way or another. So we think of them as a musician. We could think of Bono as an example. Okay, so Bono is supposed to be a rock singer. But when you look at his extracurricular activities and you look at the types of people that he hangs out with and the sort of agendas he's into and the fact that he's associated with the United Nations and he's mates with Bill Gates and he hangs out with Barack Obama and the Pope, it's pretty clear that Bono's a little bit more than just a bloody rock singer, and he's an actor in that he masquerades as one thing, but behind the scenes he's doing a whole bunch of other things. Russell Brand is a lifetime actor. He's literally an actor. But, he would have you believe the other year that he's all about a revolution of consciousness and he's a man of the people and he's anti-banksters and all this kind of thing. But it's quite clearly all an act. And there are so many examples. Bob Geldof, not to pick on Irishmen, not that he's a full-blooded Irishman anyway.
Oh, he's not, no.
He's half Jewish or a crypto-Jew. But, there's so many different examples of people that we think of as one of these things. Bill Gates would be another one. We think of him as the Microsoft guy, this nerdy computer guy. But Bill Gates is actually a eugenicist. His father was one of the principal founding members of Planned Parenthood, which comes out of the Rockefeller Foundation and is all about population reduction, and they don't even make any secret of it. You look at some of the comments of Margaret Sanger, the original founder of Planned Parenthood, and she talks about ridding society of its less desirable elements. And they're talking about killing off the parts of society that they don't like ethnic minorities and poor people. She makes comments like they're useless weeds that need to be eradicated and things like that. That's an insight into the mindset of these people. And Bill Gates comes out of that. So he's a little bit more than just a computer guy.
So do you think, Mark, we'll take Bill Gates for an example. Everybody knows who Bill Gates is. I mean, he's world famous. He owns Microsoft, blah, blah, blah. He started Microsoft back in the early 80s where he's that friend of his... something Alan, I think he only passed away there yesterday. Actually, he died of cancer. Do you think that they trust into these positions back in the early days, like pre-Microsoft, pre-Bill Gates having anything to do with computers? Do you think they're selected and they're told, like, this is what you're going to do, we're going to set you up in this business, blah, 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 and we'll take it from there? Or do they become famous and then get brought into the fold?
Well, it's achieved in different ways. With somebody like Bill Gates, you can look at his genealogy, his parenthood, where he comes from, what his dad did, and it's pretty clear that he was groomed for the role. So I would suggest that Bill Gates was given to us as the head of Microsoft to get him familiar in the public mindset so that he would become a household name. Everyone would know who he is. And then when he starts talking about vaccines and United Nations programs and Monsanto and things like that, people will tend to listen to what he has to say because he's now become a trusted individual. Everyone feels that they know him. But then I think there's also a dynamic where the controllers watch for people that exhibit a certain amount of skill and talent off their own back, and when it becomes clear that there's somebody that they can use for one of their agendas, they step in and steer them off in their desired direction at that particular point in their career. So it happens in different ways. And very key to it is bloodlines and families that these people come out of. In the talk that I'll be doing at the Open Minds Conference, I'll be going into some examples of individuals that come out of important genealogical bloodlines. And they're given these roles. They're told, right, you're going to get into the world of politics and be influential there. You're going to be an actor. You're going to be a musician and you're going to influence culture that way. I'm going to include some quotes from the singer with Killing Joke, a guy by the name of Jazz Coleman. And Killing Joke is a group that people bring up to me constantly. And they say, oh, you should listen to their lyrics. They're telling the truth. They're anti-establishment. They display an incredible amount of knowledge of the New World Order and all this stuff. But you look into who Jazz Coleman's family was, and in an interview, he talks about the fact that his ancestors were involved in the insurrection in India against the British Empire and their invading forces. And he had connections to Gandhi and all this kind of stuff. So he's not just some random individual that happened to start a pop group, and become big in some rock group. And in the same interview, he talks of the fact that his family told him when he was 5 years old that you're going to go into the world of music. So it was decided for him that was what he was going to do because they wanted one of their own. to be in one of these influential positions. And this happens time and time again. You look at all the connections going back into the world of the military with so many of these musicians.
Yeah, Jim Morrison's father, for example, he had something to do with the Vietnam War, didn't he?
Well, he did. He was involved in the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
The Gulf of Tonkin,
which pretty much kicked off the whole Vietnam War. He was the naval commander involved in that whole thing. And there's so many examples. Jim Morrison's just the tip of the iceberg. Particularly when you get into the country music industry. I've just done a podcast looking at country, which has never really been a genre that I've shown an interest in. I'm not into country music at all. But my guest on this show was just walking me through the many military family connections you've got coming through country. It's like that whole genre is just an expression of the military. And it's not just that. You get it in the punk and new wave scene. You get it in hip-hop. You get it in rock music. You get it everywhere. All these connections back to the military, the establishment, connections going into the White House, American presidents, Yale and Harvard, these Ivy League universities, secret societies, the Freemasons, Jesuits, Church of Satan, you name it, mystery schools, secret societies.
So is all our music that we're getting nowadays, like I don't listen to popular culture music now at all. I don't listen to pop music. I'll just
don't blame you.
Very randomly now what I listen to, I'm very selective about what I listen to.
Would you?
I'm sure you are yourself. I certainly don't listen to mainstream radio because they play the same claptrap over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, why would you?
Is everybody who's involved in the music business, is the whole bloody thing a scam? Every bit of it a scam? Or are there some genuine artists out there who are allowed through, so to speak, and allowed to become famous, but are not part of this overall occultist agenda?
I would say there's levels to it. Whenever you've got a household name, A-list celebrity that everyone's heard of, they're going to be 100% controlled. There's no way any individual or group would be allowed to attain that kind of position if they weren't doing the bidding of those that control these industries. Then you can go a few levels down, and I think there are probably some groups that are there just to pad out the industry. So the industry needs to exist. It needs to make money for the corporations. It needs to keep the cogs in the machine ticking along. And I think there's some groups that are there just to do that. So they're not particularly harmful. They're not really a part of the satanic agendas, but they're just there to keep things ticking along. They do what they're told. They keep their heads down. They cause no trouble, and they're allowed a certain level of success, in that regard. And then you've got genuine artists who are creative and really channeling their individual expression into their work, and they're the ones that you never hear of. They're the ones that you never hear played on the radio. You never see their videos on TV. The average person in the street would never have heard of them. These are authentic music makers, and there's so many of them out there. I showcase them on my Sound of Freedom podcast, which is where I bring together a whole bunch of tracks just of this nature, from artists that are free to express themselves however they want. No corporate shackles, no manager whispering in their ear telling them what to put into their music. Of course they make no money. Most of them probably have to work day jobs and just do their music at the weekend. But I think the average consumer can tell a record that's been put out there because the musician genuinely had something they wanted to express and get off their chest and put into their music, versus a piece of music that's been put out there just to fulfill some corporate agenda and generate some figures on a balance sheet. I think you can tell the difference. You can hear the passion. You can hear the realness coming through. And, those are two very distinct, different types of music output.
What do you make of this latest trend in the music business of, like, Amy Winehouse, for example, going on tour as a hologram?
Well,
why don't you just leave them alone? If they're dead, they're dead. I mean, what's the point?
Yeah, there was a Tupac hologram as well that performed on stage at Coachella in California a few years ago, alongside Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, and there's a bloody hologram of Tupac in the middle. Can't help thinking if they didn't keep killing off their artists,
they wouldn't have to have
holograms of them. It's just just a thought. But what do I know?
What's the make of this 27 Club? Do you think that's a real thing, or is it just a myth?
Well, there's not been many members lately. So we had Avicii turning up dead this year at the age of 28.
Yeah.
And you might have thought that if it was decided that he was going to be got rid of, if that's what happened, they would have done it at the age of 27. So the last prominent 27 Club member was Amy Winehouse in 2011. You had a whole host of them in the 60s and 70s, but, you know, there's big gaps between them. So maybe it used to be a thing that had some sort of occult priority attached to it, but it doesn't seem to be so much of a thing now.
So much, it's not as prevalent.
Yeah.
And one more thing I wanted to run by you there now. That it's nearly had to slip my mind. Actually, it has slipped my mind. No, it hasn't actually. It's come back to me now because it was something you said to me on a Skype message there a few months back when you were meant to come on a few months ago before the last conference was cancelled. It was around the time that Dolores O'Riordan had passed away.
Yes.
And I'd liken her death, and I don't want to say anything was untoward in her death. We've had the inquest. She drowned in the bath, but she's not the first pop artist to drown in the bath, is she? I mean, Whitney Houston went the same way. Whitney Houston's daughter went the same way.
Well, that's right. There's many examples of artists that have turned up dead in very strange circumstances in baths. There's Whitney Houston, there's Bobby Christina, as you say, her daughter. Jim Morrison is said to have been found in a bathtub. Who else? Well, Dolores O'Riordan is now said to have been found in a bathtub in a hotel room. That information didn't come out for several months.
No,
so she died back in January, and the police at the time said they're not treating the death as suspicious, and there's no hint of foul play. But you're not getting the coroner's autopsy report until at least April. So April came and went, and there was no word on it. And then sometime a few weeks ago, back in the summer, we finally got the coroner's report, and it was said that she died of some kind of overdose of, undisclosed substances, and she was found unconscious in a bathtub. So it does become very suspect when you look at all the high number of musicians that seem to die in these ways.
I mean, if you read the reports around the time of her death, she was due to make a massive comeback. That's what she was planning.
Well, this is something you find so often. With Chris Cornell, you have this thing, death by hotel room, I call it, where, many of these artists just turn up dead in hotel rooms. So Chris Cornell turned up dead in a hotel room in Detroit, but he was apparently on the phone to his wife before his last concert, and she initially said he was full of optimism for the future and he sounded quite upbeat, although she later issued a different statement that put a slightly different slant on things, which is suspicious in itself. But then you can go to Michael Hutchence. So he was found dead in a hotel room in Sydney, Australia back in 1997, and he'd been out to dinner with his family the day before, I think it was, and he was making plans for the future. And then you take it to Dolores O'Riordan, who was in London to record a cover version of the Cranberries' hit Zombie with another band, and she was said to have been in conversation with friends and had loads of plans and things that she was looking forward to in the future. So none of these people strike you as individuals that have had enough of life and want to end it all. They're all looking forward to the future. So what's going on then? What, they just accidentally overdose on some substance or other? And we never really get a clear explanation of what went on. It's always left rather murky and hazy, and so many in the general public end up chalking it up as, oh, it's that rock and roll lifestyle, isn't it? You know what these musicians are like. They live these crazy, debaucherous lifestyles. They do drugs. They drink too much. It's not surprising that a few of them turn up dead every now and again. And so it's just chalked up as that. I made the comment in one of my talks the other day that if it wasn't musicians that were turning up dead in hotel rooms and baths, and say it was plumbers, so you get all these plumbers that are turning up dead, people would surely stop to ask, why are all these plumbers dying? What's going on? What's happening with all these plumbers? But when it's musicians, people don't seem to ask that. They just seem content to chalk it up as, oh, it's the industry. That's rock and roll for you.
Yeah. It's a strange one. So, Mark, listen, I'm going to let you go now in a couple of moments. You're appearing on the Saturday afternoon, or is it the Sunday afternoon?
It's the Sunday from 2 till 4.
It's the Sunday, the last day.
Yeah. So I'm really going to be unpacking my whole No More Heroes research. So really getting into who these lifetime actors are, some of these family connections, some of these bloodlines that these people come out of, culture creation, how that whole thing gets done, fads, trends and movements. Basically any kind of culture-shaping event that affects the lives of large numbers of people will have been created by one of these agencies that specialise in steering culture off in these directions. None of these things happen randomly or by chance.
Well, it sounds very interesting, Mark, and I do very much look forward to the 2-hour session that you're going to do. I'm hoping to be down there myself for that, so I'll get to see it live, folks. I'd imagine they're going to videotape some of this conference anyway, so hopefully it'll be up on YouTube maybe within a few weeks or something of the end of the conference. And as far as I know, Mark, tickets are still available for this conference, is that right?
Well, as far as I know, they are, Mick, yeah.
Right.
So I think it's openmindsconference.com, and you can get tickets from that portal. I think you go through to an Eventbrite website.
Eventbrite, yeah, I think they're handling the ticket sales.
The tickets are on Eventbrite, but if you go to openmindsconference.com in the first instance, I'm sure you'll be directed from there. And it's the weekend of 2nd to the 4th of November. It's going to be a great gathering, and I've seen a few comments lately from people saying, why do you need to stage these things with real live people up there on the stage in an era where we've got Skype and we've got video broadcasts and stuff like that? Why can't you just do video links over the internet? It's not the same as being in a room with like-minded individuals.
Why was that the last one? It was brilliant.
Yeah, it's the opportunity for fellowship and networking and being in the energy field of other people that are walking the same path as you and share the same concerns as you and, are interested in the same subjects as you. It's an invaluable opportunity to do that you can't get through a frigging computer screen. Most of us spend way too much of our time on these devices anyway. I welcome the opportunity to put the bloody screen away and actually meet people face to face, because that's becoming a lost art. It is becoming a lost art. You're right there, Mark. It really is becoming a lost art. And the great thing about that is you see people huddled into little groups talking about stuff that they wouldn't normally talk about. Yeah. So, don't let coming face to face with your fellow humanity become a thing of a bygone age. Let's keep that alive, because it's a part of being natural. It's a part of being human. And these events are a great opportunity to do that. So for anyone listening that can get along, you won't regret it. It'll be a weekend well spent. It will beat watching the sport. It will beat trudging around the mall shopping. It will beat mowing the lawn. It will beat any of these things. Time well spent. Mark,
for anyone who wants to get their hands on your books or to see some of your material, is there a website you can direct them towards to hopefully buy your books?
Sure. Well, both volumes of my book, Musical Truth, are available on Amazon if people want to go that route. But if you want to get a copy of the book from me direct, I can mail out signed copies if you can pay by PayPal or Bax or something like that. So if people want to email me on markdevlinuk@gmail.com, we can sort that out. There's some information on my books at markdevlin.co.uk. And my YouTube channel is youtube.com/MarkDevlinTV. There's loads of my previous conference talks up on there. There's radio interviews that I've done. There's a whole load of stuff, hundreds of videos up there, which will give you an idea of the sort of work that I get into.
And of course, you can get your videos on YouTube as well. Just by YouTube and your name, they'll find stuff about you.
Yeah, if you just type in Mark Devlin to YouTube, you'll probably find me. There's a few other Mark Devlins around, but if you put DJ Mark Devlin, you'll definitely find me.
Not about it. But listen, Mark, thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry for keeping you for so long, because I did say I'd only have you on for about 20 minutes, but fair play, you've done nearly 40 minutes you've done now, so I really appreciate that.
All right, man. Well, I hope to see you at the conference. I hope you can get down there.
I hope so too, Mark. Yes, I really do. I hope to see you down there if I can make it. Hopefully nothing crops up between now and then, but so we'll see what happens.
Especially Arctic storms, right?
Well, we don't want another one of them. I mean, but you another. They reckon, I was only reading in the newspaper the other day that the winter we're going to get this year, both here in Ireland and in the UK, is going to make the beast from the east look like a pansy, basically, you know.
What could be causing that, I wonder?
Well, it's HARP.
Yeah.
We won't
global warming, Mick, surely.
Oh, well, I think it's the hole in the ozone layer might be having an effect on us now.
Yes, because all that
healed up. I think
all that deodorant we used in the 80s.
Yeah, and now it's having an effect on us now. You see, you said it yourself earlier on, Mark, cause and effect.
Well, there you go.
No, we were the cause because we stank, and now the effect is the world has gone to hell in a handbasket because of us.
That's right. We're to blame.
But someone has to take the blame. But listen, Mark, you take care of yourself, and hopefully you'll see you in November.
All right, mate. All the best.
Cheers. Take it handy. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was the wonderful Mark Devlin live via Skype from the UK. I think he's in the UK. And as you heard him say there, he's going to be doing his 2-hour stint down in Dooley's hotel in November. He's going to be on the 4th of November. It runs on the 2nd, Friday the 2nd, Saturday the 3rd, and Sunday the 4th of November. And there's an absolute multitude of speakers. You're going to have Garda whistleblower John Wilson's hopefully going to be doing a talk there. Mark Devlin's going to be doing a talk. There's a lot of speakers now. I'm not going to get into who's going to be there. You're going to have to go on to Open Your Minds Ireland conference website and find out for yourself. Anyway, let me see now. It's 45 minutes in, so we've got about 15 minutes there or thereabouts of the show left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some music. I haven't played music on the show now in quite a while, so I'm going to go to my folder. So just give me a moment there now. Music, yes, there we go. And let me see. Oh, Another Brick in the Wall. There's a song I haven't heard for a long, long time. So I'm going to play that. A little bit of Pink Floyd, folks. So here we are. A little bit of Pink Floyd. And I'll be back to you in a couple of minutes, folks. Take it handy. Nope. And for some reason that is not playing. I think there's something wrong with a program here on the computer called Zara. So I'm going to shut Zara down. And I'm going to start it back up again. And hopefully I might be able to play a song. So give you a couple of moments, folks. Just bear with me here and we'll see what happens. This show is pre-recorded, by the way, folks, so I have a little bit of leeway. I can play about with a few things. I'm not under the pressure I would be on live radio, so, that's something, I suppose. But give us a look here now, and I shall have a look. No. See, this is the worst thing about these machines. This is not the main studio, folks. This is a different studio, so I have these... no, I'll try and get something on now in a couple of moments. Anyway, I'm just going to waffle on. Folks, this is the Words You Don't Know radio show, as you know, and it is a pre-record. Now, I just had Mark Devlin on there for the last 40 minutes, and as I said, Mark is going to be doing a 2-hour presentation talk at the Open Minds Ireland conference in Dooley's Hotel in Waterford on the 2nd, 3rd and 4th. He's going to be appearing on the 4th, which is the Sunday afternoon. I think he's on from 2 to 4. So that'll be leading up to your Sunday dinner, folks, if you decide to go down to it. That'll be an absolutely fantastic talk. Musical truth. And what he talks about, I suppose, most of us when we're looking at music videos on TV and all, we don't be, paying too much attention to them, but he does. And what he's noticed is that there's a lot of satanic overtones to the music. And it's just something that he's noticed. And he's not the only one who's noticed. This is something I've noticed many, many years ago, and I've noticed it in the movie industry as well. I mean, you can hardly watch a movie now, and if you look in the background of most movies, there's an awful lot of symbolism, Illuminati symbolism, pyramids, all-seeing eyes. And I couldn't help that. That's why I asked Mark that question earlier on. I couldn't help wondering, is everybody in the music industry, all these artists and producers and stuff like that, jumping on a bandwagon saying, but look, everybody because of the internet is interested in the Illuminati and Freemasonry and all of this sort of garbage, so we'll stick all this in the videos because it looked cool, and I wondered, is that what was going on? But then I went and looked back at some old Top of the Pops videos, like from the 1980s, like Duran Duran and a few other bands from the 80s, like Tears for Fears and Aha. And if you look at some of their videos, lo and behold, even Madonna videos, the symbolism is there. It's all there in the background. And we didn't have the internet back then in the 1980s, but yet that symbolism was there. It was always there. So is there something satanic going on? Who knows? I don't know. But there's no way of really knowing, I suppose, of whether there is this agenda of... I can hear music in the background. Doesn't matter. I don't know what's causing it. But is there an agenda, a satanic agenda within the music industry? And if there is, why? Why would there be an agenda? Does music have that much of an effect on people that if they ingrain it with all this satanic stuff, all this negativity, that it will have an effect? Well, look at culture out there. I mean, just look at the way children are. A new pop video pops up and a new song, children follow it. We all did it back in the 80s. We all did it in the 70s. We all did it in the 90s. Children did it in the 90s, and children are doing it today. The latest trend, the latest fashion. Okay, a perfect example would be Krispy Kreme donuts. We had a store open here in Dublin there a couple of weeks ago, and the queues were out the door. It was ridiculous. People were queuing up till 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning to buy donuts. I mean, why? It's a bloody donut, you know. But that's the thing about popular culture. It catches on. People latch onto it. The X Factor is a perfect example. You watch the X Factor and it's just full of rubbish. Just absolutely rubbish. But people watch it. You know, they look at the judges as if these judges are some sort of musical experts. Yes, they might be experts in the music industry and how to sell something, but they're not musical experts. They don't really know music. They're not even good at music, none of them. But what can you do? Anyway, I'm going to try and play another song now. I've restarted Zara, which is the musical, or the program we use here for playing music. I mean, there's plenty of programs. You can use Spotify and a few other things. But Zara is a PC-based program, and it's quite a good program. But when it doesn't work, it can be quite a pain in the ass as well. So I'm going to see will this play now, and if it does good and well, I'll be playing a song called It's Bad You Know by R.L. Burnside. Back to you in a couple of minutes, folks. Now, folks, you're very welcome back. That wasn't meant to happen there. I don't know what happened there. Something happened. Anyway, folks, I am coming towards the end of the show. We've been on now for 50 odd minutes. Now, I understand while Mark was on, there was the sound quality wasn't great in the background. Now, you could still hear what Mark was saying, but there was this extra noise in the background. And unfortunately, folks, there's nothing I can do with that. That's Skype. Unfortunately, sometimes you get a good connection, sometimes you get a bad connection, and there's nothing you can do, nothing whatsoever. But when it happens, and you just have to move on and get on with it. So I apologise for that noise. This is a pre-recorded show, folks. I'm at the show nearly 10 years, but I'm 10, 11 years actually. But I'm learning the ropes now in a different studio, with pre-recorded equipment, and it's not the same as doing the live radio. But I can't do live radio anymore. I won't get into why, but I don't do live radio now. They're all pre-records. And unfortunately, everything is new to me, so you'll have to bear with me. Hopefully the shows will get a little bit more crispier in the future. But we'll see what happens. That's the way, it's just the way radio goes, folks. You know, you get your good days, you get your bad days. Blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. But anyway, this has been The World You Don't Know, folks. We are 56 minutes in, so that'll do me. You've got to insert a couple of ads into the show for tomorrow, so I have to leave a little bit of space at the end of the hour to give them the space to do that if they so choose to put the ads in. But if not, it's still a 55-minute show, which is the average anyway. So, folks, this has been The World You Don't Know. And remember, folks, the world is full of wonderful people. If you can't find one, be one. Talk to you all again next week.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Breaking humanity, one soul at a time. This is the World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.